welcome. Thanks for being here today. The topic for today is a high-level overview of InterSystems products. Quick question, how many people, this is your first global summit? Show of hands. Wow, quite a few. So the goal for today is, there's lots of different products we have. Even some customers who have been around for a long time only use certain products. So the goal is to talk about all the products and to set a foundation for, okay, now that I understand what all these products are at a high level, what's the best use of my week here? Or 3 days here, although it's so packed it will feel like a week. So what are the things which topics I'm interested in? You can dive into more detail, either through sessions, through tech exchange, and other things that I'll talk about later as well. My name is Joe Gallant. I'm a senior technical trainer here at InterSystems. Recognize a few faces here. Been at InterSystems now for, I guess back in February it was 34 years. Lots of different roles over the years. As of April of last year, I'm now in the Learning Services group as a senior technical trainer. And my goal for today is to talk at a high level about all the different products we have, how they fit together, and again, set the foundation for the rest of the week for you. So we'll start by mentioning the products that we'll talk about. I'll start by talking about InterSystems Iris, the core data platform that's a fundamental part of everything we do. And then we'll talk about several healthcare-related products, Iris for Health, Health Share, and Track Care. We'll also talk about some of the things we're doing in the cloud. And then we'll talk about a couple of industries that aren't healthcare. Granted, a lot of what we do is healthcare, but healthcare isn't the only thing we do. So I'll mention what we're doing in terms of financial services and supply chain and logistics. And by the way, those are just two of, there's lots of, we have customers we have a customer in Australia that automates online betting. A customer in the UK that deals with hospitality management. So there's lots of different uses of our product, not just health. Oh, there you are. How are you? So there's lots of different technologies that we do, but I'm going to focus on healthcare in these two. But so we'll start with the generic product and then get into some industry-specific things. So first part we're going to talk about is InterSystems Iris. So some people say, well, Iris is a database. Well, we use the term data platform because a database is only one of the things Iris is. We'll focus about that and we'll talk about that more in the next slide. But Iris also includes lots of analytics capabilities as well, so it's not just that. Iris also includes lots of interoperability capabilities, the ability to access data in many different sources, the ability to orchestrate business processes, to automate lots of things through interoperability, and the ability to deploy it on lots of different platforms and environments. So let's talk about Iris itself. The main focus is pretty much anything related to data, but primarily real-time or near real-time, high-performance data management. When performance is important, Iris is key. Also, again, used for a variety of applications, not just healthcare, financial services, supply chain, others as well. Again, the key here is enterprise-wide, mission-critical, typically involving analytics as well. So I'll spend a little bit of time on this slide, which talks about the varying capabilities of Iris. Let's start with the top one there, multi-model database. What do we mean by multi-model? Well, in the database world, there's lots of different models. There's the relational model. People do things with SQL. Some people think that objects is another model, documents another model, key value pairs. There's lots of different models. And last time I looked at Amazon, I think there were 15 different database products that they had for different things. If you want to do SQL, you use relational, you use this product. If you want to use document, you use this product. If you want to use key value, you use another product. So while they all come from AWS, they're really different products. Iris, through one data engine, provides support for all these different logical models. So if we have had customers that have migrated an application, a relational-based application from SQL, brought into our environment, that same data is now accessible via objects. That data is accessible through key value syntax and manipulating the data. So there's lots of options. So the fact that we can support all these multi-models with one underlying storage engine is a key differentiator for Iris. Later this week in several sessions, you'll hear about what we're doing with vectors, things we're doing for vector search and things like that. There's sessions about that you'll hear about as well, all supported by the same underlying database engine. So that's the multi-model part. Let's talk about multi-workload. Some environments are optimized for transactional use. Some are optimized for analytical use, a different use. But the thing about Iris is it's multi-workload. You can have an environment that performs well, the same environment performing well as an application for interactive transactions. And on that same system, you can do analytics. So it supports, there's not a different product for the different uses, there's one product for both, and that same system can do both. So that's the database aspects of Iris. But as mentioned, it's not just the database, it includes analytic capabilities. So there's a variety of analytics technology that comes out of the box with Iris, including SQL. There are certain SQL commands that are analytics oriented, but we also have the ability to create analytics cubes and to do MDX queries, something called Iris BI, something we used to call Deep C, some of you may be familiar with. That capability also includes some AI and machine learning. If you took a little preview of some of the sessions on this week, you may have noticed that, wow, there's a lot of topics regarding AI and machine learning this week, obviously because those topics are really important these days. So a lot of these capabilities we'll talk about more detail later in the week. So that's the analytics aspect. So we have the database, we have the analytics, but then we have interoperability. The environment doesn't stand alone. It needs to talk to other systems. So interoperability components with Iris include the ability and adapters to get data in a variety of different applications, different databases, different APIs, the ability to automate and build business processes to orchestrate systems talking to each other, get information from one system, transform it, send it out to another system. So there's lots of interoperability capabilities built into the environment. With lots of other products, you would need different products to do all this. You need one product for your database, a different product for your interoperability, another product to do your analytics. Iris provides all these capabilities as standard feature of Iris. And how do we deploy it? Well, these days, cloud, of course, is really important. I'll talk a little bit about cloud. There's lots of cloud-related sessions this week. We also support on-premise, which is a term that didn't need to exist many years ago because everything was on-prem. Like, where's your system? Well, it's here. But now we support cloud, on-prem, of course, still, and many people are using it in a hybrid environment. Some of the stuff is in the cloud, some of the stuff is on-prem. So very flexible in how these things are deployed. So that's the core capabilities of what Iris is. And again, what makes us different? First of all those capabilities are provided in one product. Performance is key. Those of you who may have been to some previous global summits know we always talk about performance. And we have a goal that every version of our product is faster than the version before it. We're always optimizing and tuning for performance. Again, mission critical, lots of security capabilities, fault tolerance. Complements existing infrastructures. Most of the people that use our technology bring it into other technologies they already have. The typical use is not a, let's replace what we have with Iris. It's often, let's bring Iris in and have it communicate. That's where the interoperability capability becomes really important. A lot of people aren't interested in replacing what they have. That's a major, sort of like major surgery. But if I can add new capabilities to what they already have, Iris makes that possible. So InterSystems Iris is the product. And one of the ways you can use Iris, concept we've been talking about for a couple of years now, is this idea of a smart data fabric. Data fabric is something the industry is talking about in general. We've been using the term smart data fabric. And the goal there is you've got all these different sources of data, some in databases, some available via services, streaming data, lots of different sources. And on the right, you've got all these different consumers. You may have some standard reports you need to do. You have business users that need to solve particular problems. You have users that want to do some dynamic interactive queries. Lots of consumers of the data. So how do you get that data to them? The idea of the smart data fabric, again, it's not a product. It's a sort of a concept of how you can utilize Iris. The key there is security and lineage of the data. If someone at the end gets a report, one thing he wants to know is, where'd this data come from? You know, if it aggregated data from multiple places, it's really important to know the lineage of the data. Also security, who can access which data? So security is vitally important. So we create this semantic layer from all the data from these sources, and then you've got the issues of connectivity, automating processes, reporting, BI, and machine learning. All those capabilities are available through this concept of a smart data fabric. So it's more of a concept than it is a particular product. So utilizing Iris, you can do all this. As you'll see in later slides, we'll talk about some products that are doing exactly this. One of the things Iris has, we talked about this last year at Global Summit, and we'll talk about more this year, is the idea of integrated ML. What we did was we said, there's lots of machine learning capabilities out there, but to utilize them, you need to be a data scientist to do lots of this stuff. Wouldn't it be great if we could make some of those capabilities available to not necessarily an end user, but someone who understands SQL? So what we did with integrated ML is we exposed certain machine learning capabilities to the standard SQL query language. So those of you familiar with SQL know you've got select and you've got create table and all those types of commands. Well, we added some new commands like create model and train model and validate model. So through simple SQL commands, you can interact with machine learning. And then once you have it set up, we added a function called predict. So one of the columns in my select statement may be predict a value by using a particular model. Pass in this value and see what the predicted value would be. So being able to take advantage of the model. And in this case, someone else might have done the create and validate, but the user can now use the predict functions leveraging the model. And to do that, we leverage lots of existing capabilities that exist in terms of data robot, AutoML, and some other standard machine learning engines out there. Again, you get more details of this later in the weekend sessions and also in the Tech Exchange. So that's Iris. That's the core data platform, providing the database, providing analytics, providing interoperability. And that is industry agnostic. It's just technology that can be used by anybody in any industry. But as many of you know, we have lots of customers in the healthcare world. So we created Iris for Health. What Iris for Health is starts with all the standard Iris capabilities. Then to that, we add lots of healthcare-specific support for healthcare-specific standards. FHIR is mentioned here, also other standards. Let's go to the next slide. So we can see a list of all the different standards that come out of the box with InterSystems Iris. You can see, I'm not going to mention all of them. You see them mentioned here. You'll see some of them are country-specific, like this is a UK-specific one here. This one's specific to Japan. Standards are evolving all the time. Years ago, one of our customers, my favorite quote from him is, "The great thing about standards is so many to choose from." So standards are always changing. New standards are developed. New versions of existing standards are developed. We have people monitoring these things all the time to support. If there are new standards, something we don't support that you need support for, let us know. We can include that. So keeping up to date with all these industry standards becomes really important. One of the standards for the HL7 group that came out a few years ago is this concept of HL7 FHIR. Iris for Health supports FHIR in a variety of ways, both as a server and a client. You can create a FHIR repository. You can use SQL to build SQL queries to access FHIR. So lots of FHIR capability. The ability to use data transformations, the reference here to DTL. Data transformations, for example, to translate some of your existing HL7 version 2 things into a FHIR format. That's one of the things you could do with that. So lots of support for FHIR. Did anyone attend the FHIR session that happened before this one? So, okay, a couple of you. There's lots of sessions on FHIR this week that you can find out more about FHIR. FHIR doesn't replace there's lots of HL7 like version 2 stuff that's still out there. So it's sort of complementary. Actually, quick show of hands. Is anybody utilizing FHIR right now in their environments? A few people. Okay. Yeah, it's definitely growing in popularity. And later, when we talk about cloud services, you'll see some of the things we're doing when it comes to using FHIR. So Iris for Health is for people who want to build healthcare-oriented applications. Iris for Health. If it's not healthcare, Iris. But we said, okay, we're going to take Iris for Health, and we're going to build some other things. So several years ago, we created this thing called HealthShare. HealthShare is not really a product, it's a family of products. If someone says they're using HealthShare, that means they're using a particular component or one or more of HealthShare. So this slide represents all the components that represent what HealthShare is. It is built on the foundation on the bottom here of Iris for Health. And using all those capabilities, it creates a series of products within the HealthShare family. One is the Unified Care Record. That's one we'll talk about in a bit. It provides a unified view of, say you're a particular patient, you have information scattered across many facilities. The goal of the Unified Care Record is to create a consistent view of everything about you. Now, that information exists in many places. Those places use different applications. Those applications use different names for fields, and they use different coding formats for diagnosis and things like that. So you need to create a canonical model that represents all that data in a consistent way. So that's the core of the Unified Care Record, which we'll talk about more in a bit. And there's other products here that we'll mention as well, not all of them, but many of them. For example, one of them off to the left there is Health Connect. Health Connect is the integration component. Actually, that's one of the, as part of learning services as a trainer, one of the classes I teach is a class on using Health Connect to do HL7 transformations. So let's talk about Health Connect. Again, those of you who may be familiar with our previous products may have remembered Ensemble as an integration component, get a few nods there. So Health Connect is the interoperability aspects. It allows you to connect to different products as through services, create business processes, transform data from one format to another, use business rules to decide where you want to send particular messages. All those functionality is wrapped up into HealthShare Health Connect. And here we see some of the capabilities, transforming API management, large transaction volumes, a lot of the uses, current uses with using version 2. So lots of ways to interchange your healthcare information. And as at the bottom mentions here, of course, you can add on to that the support for FHIR that we'll talk about in just a bit. So Health Connect is the Health Connect is not a tool to build healthcare applications. Health Connect is for interacting healthcare data. To build healthcare applications, you use Iris for Health. So one of the key products in the HealthShare family is the Unified Care Record. This creates the centralized canonical view of information across different sources. So you get information from multiple places, it's aggregated, it's normalized, and now you have the data that represents you scattered across, the clinic you went to, the hospital you went to, then you went to a specialist. All that information is created and consolidated into one place. Now, if you have that data in all one place, it'd be actually a good idea to take a look at it. So the clinical viewer is the important that allows clinicians to analyze that data. Again, browser-based, no client software needed. You bring up the browser and you can access all the information that's in the Unified Care Record. So that's Unified Care Record and the clinical viewer that's part of it. Clinical viewer is a tool for the clinician. Later we'll talk about, well, what if you're a patient? How do you see your stuff? That's coming up. Another feature of HealthShare is this concept of the patient index. So you've got data in multiple places. Is this the same person? I'm Joe Gallant in one system, I'm Joseph Gallant in another system, and I'm Joseph K. Gallant in a third system. Am I really the same person, or is it just someone that happens to have a name similar to me? So the idea behind an EMPI, an Enterprise Master Patient Index, is to make that determination. Are these different records representing the same person? HealthShare Patient Index is our implementation of the concept of a Master Patient Index. So let's take an example of that. So here are two John Smiths. They're in different records. They have different unique medical record numbers within their application. And we're not going to change anything in their existing application. That's still how they're identified within the application. But through the Unified Care Record, we're going to assign them a Master Patient Index ID that represents this information in different places. So we're not changing anything about the source of the data. We're just referencing it through the Unified Care Record. So let's take another example. So here we have two people, Elizabeth Smith and Liz Spencer. So you get to decide the criteria and how to weight those criteria to determine whether it's the same person. So for example, you may decide, well, that looks like it's a nickname, so we can weight that a certain way. They don't have the same last name, that could be a problem, or maybe not. Maybe somebody got married and they changed the last name, that's a possibility. They do have the same date of birth, they live at the same address, they have the same social security number, so you get to decide how to weight these things, and then the decision becomes the final score. Then the question becomes, what do you do with that final score? There are several options. One option is, if it's high enough above the threshold that you decide, we'll automatically link them. Again, we're changing nothing in the source. Just as far as the UCR is concerned, we're considering them the same. Could be wrong. You could unlink them later. So if it's above a certain point, we'll link them. If it's below a certain threshold that you decide, no, not even close. Don't link them. Maybe you're wrong, you could link them later. And what if it's in the middle? What do you do? Well, if it's above, you'll automatically link them. It's below, you get to decide this middle threshold. And if this middle threshold exists, someone's going to look at it. So there's a whole mechanism to put something on somebody's queue to take a look at this and make the decision. That's not high enough to automatically do it. It's not low enough to say don't. A person has to make the decision. So this is all functionality available through the HealthShare Patient Index. Another component of HealthShare is the provider directory. Oh, question, yes. Sure.
The EMPI. So you guys recently made an announcement about a relationship with LexisNexis Risk Solutions and their EMPI. How does that work? Is it work instead of or in conjunction with?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I can find out for you, though.
Okay.
Or we can ask somebody in the tech exchange later.
Okay.
So yeah, I saw that too, but I'm not sure the specifics of that
Okay.
question.
Thank you.
But good question. Yeah, as you'll notice, we do partner with different custom companies on different things as well, but regarding that, we can follow up for you. Another component of HealthShare is the HealthShare Provider Directory. There was a study a few years ago about how wrong many directories of what provider information is. And so the goal of the provider directory is create that single source of truth and have accurate information about what provider. When I said that the report says it's mostly out of date, about 5 heads here just automatically nodded and said, yeah, provider directory is out of date. So the goal of provider directory is to provide that current, accurate information about what providers are available. And of course, as many of you know, in the healthcare world, there are lots of different providers out there. The statuses of things change all the time, so you want to create that single source of truth. That, as the second bullet says here, the low quality of that information is really an industry-wide problem. So that's provider directory. We talked about the, question, yes. Question here with the microphone.
So is that just tooling, or do you actually provide content as well, or do you partner with people who provide provider data content?
I don't know the answer to that specifically.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah, HealthShare is one of the areas where I know the high level of, but however, if you want to get the details of Health Connect, I could spend 4 hours with the yeah. It used to be many years ago at Global Summit, everyone would know the 1 or 2 products that we had. Now we have so many different products that different people specialize in different areas. So, but we can find out for you. So we talked about this unified care record. That's a great thing. We talked about how the clinician can get at it with a clinical viewer. What about the patient himself? If there's a nice unified view of my data, it'd be nice if I could see it. So personal community is the component of HealthShare that provides that through a browser-based interface, access to the unified care record information, supported in browser and on mobile and a variety of different devices, also customizable as well. So that's the patient access to the information that's in the unified care record. So you have all this data there. It's nice if there's a unified care record, so from an individual patient perspective, that's a nice view. The patient can see it now with the patient portal, but I've got a lot of data there from a lot of different people. I would like to do some analysis. So Health Insight is the HealthShare component that allows you to do analytics on this data. Has a variety of ways to aggregate data, normalize data. You create your business models. You can create cubes and do queries on the cubes and create dashboards, lots of things like that. It's all about getting that data in a format that can then be analyzed and visualized to create the proper access to the data. Again, security is always part of this too. What data you have access to can be controlled with security. So different people can see different parts of the data depending what security protocols that you set up. So doing that type of analysis, that can be done using the Iris BI capability. The thing we used to refer to a few years ago as Deep C. That's the built-in capability. We also support something called adaptive analytics, which is another BI way to access the data. And when it talks about analytics, I mean, analytics is a general term. I mean, doing SQL queries is analytics. Doing cubes is analytics. But another part of analytics is using AI and machine learning. That's just another part of analytics. You may have noticed from the agenda, there's lots of AI machine learning topics this week that we'll talk a lot about. So through HealthShare, you have access to get that data and feed it to different environments. And again, different products out in the market today, TensorFlow, Tableau, and others allow you to get access to the data and reference it with different tools as well. So there's an example here. You take your data that exists in HealthShare, You would then create your predictive models and the concept of training your model and then validating and testing your model, and then you can utilize the model. It uses here something called PMML, which is called Predictive Model Markup Language. It's an XML-based language to basically define your models. There's lots of tools out there that support the standard. So if you create a model, you can export that model with PMML and have that model consumed with something else. So again, that's part of the machine learning health insight part of HealthShare. Another HealthShare component is this idea of care community. This is all about establishing care plans. So my information is in lots of different systems, and there's lots of different physicians and clinicians that are involved. Wouldn't it be great if we could coordinate a plan for me and then not just operate in a vacuum? So what's the appropriate medication I should take for something? What's the appropriate test I should take the next time? Not just one doctor independently deciding those things, but being able to coordinate that. So care community allows that coordination between different clinicians, different resources to create a plan, what to do. So it's not just not the after side of healthcare of something's wrong, how do I fix it? What's the plan going forward? So, and if you have multiple people involved, multiple clinicians involved, you want to create a consistent plan. Care community makes that happen. So those are some of the, actually let me briefly go back to this slide just to, so again, these are some of the different HealthShare components. If someone says they're using HealthShare, you don't necessarily know what they're using. It probably means they're using Unified Care Record, but it could be they could be using Health Connect. But you'll notice Unified Care Record is the foundation for the things on top, personal community, Insight, care community, and so forth. Health Connect allows the integration capability, but doesn't leverage the Unified Care Record. That's why it's off to the side of it. Also, the patient index doesn't necessarily need to utilize the Unified Care Record. Okay, let's go back.
You have a question?
Question, sure.
Yeah, so I was wondering, through this platform, is there any diagnostic or anything, because we were talking about performance and latency, so is there self-diagnostic, self-repair features, anything like that, or does it have to be external?
In terms of database latency and
Yes.
things like that?
Yep.
First of all, we gather statistics all the time on low-level IOs, how many database references we're doing, latency. So there's those statistics and tools you can monitor that. We do also have APIs that allow you to use third-party tools. There's REST APIs to access that information if you want to use a third-party tool. We also, we support SNMP for doing access of data as well. So there are tools that we provide, but we do have APIs to analyze that data as well. Okay, so let's go back to, so we talked about Iris being the core platform for building applications, Iris for Health being the platform for building applications in the healthcare world, HealthShare being integrating clinical information that uses Iris for Health, and we also have TrackCare. TrackCare is a complete hospital information system that's built with Iris for Health. It actually originally started as a separate company called TrackHealth that became part of InterSystems many years ago. And it's a full hospital information system, but it's not available in the US. We sell it outside the US. We do not want to compete with many of our US companies that have hospital information systems. So we made the decision that we will provide TrackCare, but not in the US because we don't want to compete directly with our customers, because with those customers sell software that also includes Iris, so we don't want to create that conflict. Gartner ranked it as one of the leading healthcare solutions. And again, there's over 400 million patient records in 29 countries and 5 continents that are using TrackCare. Again, it can be used by hospitals, labs, community care, lots of different, has a lot of the capabilities that we talked about in leveraging analytics. It has not the exact same, it does have the concept of a unified care record, but it's not exactly the same as what HealthShare has. So a full hospital information system, full UI capabilities. Here's a sampling of some of the different capabilities it has. You can see both the breadth and the depth of all the different capabilities that TrackCare has. Again, something that's not available within the US, only available outside the US. Here's a reference. The orange parts of this map indicate the parts of the world that are currently using track care. So I said over 400 million records. So lots of use. Another reason it's not in the US is a lot of these countries have national health systems. So the whole idea of billing becomes interesting if you're not billing like the way the US system, of course, has providers and payers and all that stuff. So that's another reason it's mostly outside the US. So we talked about Iris, we talked about Iris for Health, we talked about Health Share, we talked about Track Care. A lot of these things are available on-prem, but also, let's talk about what we're doing in the cloud. And there's lots of cloud topics this week you can also find out more details of. But I decided to put in this slide, but part of me says, does anyone need this slide anymore? Like, do people really need to be told about the benefits economically of the cloud and the operational benefits and the no capital expense and the scaling as needed and focus your resources on what you're doing, not maintaining the environment. So this is sort of the standard why the cloud. But when you look at all the research from Gartner and other folks, the cloud is the way people are heading. If people aren't there now, they'll be there soon. Lots of people are in mixed hybrid environments, but several years ago, Gartner's doing their database research. They changed the name of that entire quadrant to cloud database. They pretty much consider that the only database worth researching these days. So things are, just a quick show of hands, how many folks here are currently using the cloud in any way? Okay, about half of you, okay. And those of you who didn't have their hand up, how many people are considering cloud? About half of the other ones. Okay, so yeah, there's lots of stuff we're doing in the cloud. Let's talk about the different ways we can do that. So through what we're doing with the cloud, again, the whole purpose of the cloud is reducing time, reducing costs, making things operationally more efficient. So we have a couple of options. One option is the bottom part of this diagram here, the cloud license. You manage the cloud environment yourself. You install Iris like you would install it locally, just you install it on the cloud, and you provide the license. So the BYOL, bring your own license. So you're managing the environment, you're just doing it in the cloud instead of on-prem. The other option is we manage the cloud infrastructure and the InterSystems parts for you. So you can focus on the use of the product and not the environment and the maintaining of the product. So there's managed services that we provide that take care of that. And then the next level up there is cloud services themselves that we're providing. So you just want to use the services that we provide, either platform as a service or software as a service. The next slide will mention some of those that we provide. So let's look at the bottom here. If you're just interested in using our SQL capability, we provide a complete managed service that will give you SQL access to the data. If you're interested in using our integrated ML that we talked about, we have a separate service just for that. This week, we'll be talking about a document database service that'll be available soon as well. And then from the Fire perspective, we have 3 different services. We have a Fire server service, so you can build Fire servers. We'll manage everything for you. Also, a separate thing, a Fire transformation service, how to do transforms within Fire. And also this, related to the Fire server is this Fire server SQL builder, where you can use Fire and create SQL queries for that. Health Connect Cloud, what we talked about earlier. So actually, that's one of the classes I teach. And Health Connect Cloud can be installed on-prem, or we can completely manage a Health Connect Cloud environment for you as a service. And you'll see references to more managed services as we go forward, too. There's lots more options there. So up until now, in terms of uses of Iris, we talked primarily about healthcare. Not surprisingly, it's a large chunk of what we do, but it's not the only part of what we do. In terms of customers, after healthcare, probably the second largest industry we have customers in is in financial services. Actually, is anybody here using financial services? Okay. So let's talk about what we're doing there. Remember, we talked about this idea of a smart data fabric because the problems are similar. We've got lots of data from lots of places, siloed data that on the right, we have lots of consumers that need access to that data. There's some standard reports that we need to do. In the financial services world, you have data sciences and the folks that are called the quants that do all the analysis and do all that. They need access to the data. Lots of different needs of access to the data. And what happens today? This is actually referencing, if you were here last year at Global Summit, this asset management company was one of the keynote speakers. And in their current environment before utilizing Iris, they had lots of data in lots of different places. Some of it was in applications, some of it was from streams, some of it was from different file formats, some of it was in flat files that some application creates that you've got to consume. And how did they get that data out to the consumers? Well, what they did was they had lots of manual processes that they had to do. And then they had to validate it. And they created lots of spreadsheets with lots of Excel formulas and lots of things that they had to do. It was such a tedious task that they only did it once a month. They had to do it once a month because there was once-a-month reporting regulations. But it was such a tedious process that they only did it once a month. So the goal was, how can we take this problem and automate it? Using this smart data fabric concept that we talked about, we can take all this data from different formats and leverage Iris to take advantage of lots of integration capabilities built in, lots of connectivity. We can keep track of data lineage. We can provide analytics. We can provide machine learning capabilities. We can ingest lots of different data. So all these concepts we could apply to create access to these data, completely automated. Now they can run it anytime they want. They can run it daily. They can run it more than once a day if they want. The thing that used to take them days worth of effort to do the monthly thing they had to do, they can now run anytime they want. We automated the ingestion of all this data. We automated the validation, comparing it. All of that has been automated. And the way we did that was we leveraged this concept of the smart data fabric, and we created this thing called Total View for Asset Management. So that's a particular product available to the financial services world. Now, the financial services world has lots of different components. This particular component is focused on the asset management part of financial services. So you have data from all these different systems. We have ability to ingest them and connect them. There are integrity checks built in, workflows. There's a core model, the metadata that's brought in. The data is stored. You have cubes to do analysis. You have snapshotting capabilities. Certain people want to do analysis of the data from yesterday, and they need a snapshot of that while the other data changes. So you can do those snapshots and do your analysis on a frozen thing while other things are changing. These things can be scheduled to run anytime they want. So again, this process that used to take them many days to do that they did once a month is now the matter of saying, run it now. And they can do it anytime they want. All the different consumers are available to process that, including analytics capabilities, reporting capabilities. So face it, this type of analysis, and now we talk a lot about AI and machine learning and the term of analytics. You know, it used to be called decision support years ago. We keep renaming it. We keep using different technologies. But what do we do? What's it all about? I need current, accurate data to make good decisions. That hasn't changed. How we're doing it has changed a lot. But using a tool like this, you can have access to current, accurate, because we can validate it data, and you can make your good, went backwards there, and you can make your good decisions using a variety of tools. So the core concept hasn't changed. It's now easier to do because of the technologies that exist. So that's, and later this week you'll also be hearing some other things we're doing in the financial services area in one of the keynote sessions later this week. So that's financial services. Another industry that we put an increased focus on recently is supply chain, a term that a lot of people never heard about until the pandemic happened and everyone kept hearing about what's this thing called supply chain that I keep hearing about, and why can't I buy this thing that I used to be able to buy pretty easily because of the supply chain issue. So supply chain is really important in a lot of it. And what are some of the key issues with supply chain? Well, optimized fulfillment. That's a nice way of saying when people order stuff, can I give it to them? There's this term in supply chain called OTIF, on time in full. Did it show up on time and was it everything they ordered? So, you know, obviously, if you're doing that, you have good customer satisfaction and you're being very productive. But if you have to back order stuff, or things didn't ship on time, so they had to reroute something, so there are problems. So Optimized fulfillment's important in supply chain. Also, forecasting things. OSA, that's shortcut for on-shelf availability. If people order it, do I have it? Obviously, that impacts your ability to ship things on time as well. So there are models that exist for, I mean, you want the right amount of inventory to satisfy the demand, but you don't want too much lying around. So what type of models can you use to predict and forecast? So you want your forecast to be accurate, so when people order things, they have. If there's going to be an increased demand, can your model predict that increased demand so when it happens, you have the things they need? That's a critical part of the bit. And the overall flow, everything from the inbound data, outbound data, it's all about improving cost, improving efficiencies. So there's now a product called the InterSystems Supply Chain Orchestrator. We announced it, it was available last year at Global Summit for the first time. And it is another product targeted to the supply chain industry, focusing on our core platform, taking advantage of the multi-model database, taking advantage of integration, interoperability, a lot of analytics. So what it does, we talked about this slide many times, it's another use of the smart data fabric concept. Leveraging lots of different sources, siloed data, bringing it in, ingestion, security, lineage, all the key components, and providing access to it from a variety of end users on the right. So it's a product that, again, we announced the first time last year at Global Summit. So it's one platform, everything happens out of the box. Lots of flexible UIs and APIs. So it's, I mean, let's think about it. Conceptually, it's not that different from health. HealthShare is about, I have all this clinical data, how can I get it all together and provide a consistent view so people can use it? Total View for Assets Management is about, I have all this financial data, how can I integrate it and normalize it in such a way that people can access it? You know, this is the same thing for supply chain oriented data. So similar concepts applied to different industries. Again, you can get more details on Supply Chain Orchestrator. There's a session on it, there's a couple of sessions on it this week. You can also see it demonstrated at the Tech Exchange. Which brings us to a wrap up to talk about, so that's a sort of high-level overview of the different products that we have, how they fit together. But the goal here was to make you aware of lots of things so you can decide what to do for the rest of the week. So there are lots of sessions. You should all have a calendar with sessions. If you don't have the app as well, the app has got all the sessions. All the sessions are also recorded. If you look at this and say, there's two at the same time I'd like to do, but I'm not sure which one I would go to one of them, and when we post the recordings of the other ones. So all the sessions will be audio recorded, synced to slides. So there's no video, but there's the slides and the audio. So you'll get an email at some point after the conference saying, here's the link to all the things that you didn't get a chance to see. Or something that you did see, and you get back to the office and say, you should watch this one. This information here that will help us. So all those, but in addition to the keynote sessions and the breakout sessions, there are other resources available to you. One is the Tech Exchange. The Tech Exchange is a room that's at 2 levels down. You'll see signs of how to get to it. It's also the same area this year where lunch will be. So the Tech Exchange is going to be in the same general area. How many people those who've been to the Global Summit before, Tech Exchange, you've been to the Tech Exchange, show of hands? A few folks, okay. It's sort of just an open area to talk about anything you want to talk about. All the developers are there, the product managers. If you're interested in a particular topic, you can actually sign up for a one-on-one meeting with any one of them. There's also, in addition to computers who do demos, there's whiteboards there, because sometimes it's like, I've been trying to do something and I don't know, and sometimes you just need a half an hour with somebody to draw something on a whiteboard and talk about concepts. That's there too. Also, it's the place with the best coffee machine. There'll be a good espresso machine there when the Tech Exchange is open, so it's always a good place to get good coffee. So it's setting up these one-on-one meetings, seeing product demos. There will be a calendar of coming up, this schedule, this demonstration will happen. But if you want to see a particular demo about something that isn't on the schedule, or you're not there, ask somebody and we can hook you up with somebody and get a demo for you. So that's a great resource at the Tech Exchange. One of the parts of the Tech Exchange, there'll be a table for learning services. That's the group that I'm a part of. And in learning services, a couple of things. You can schedule a one-on-one training session. Say there's a particular topic you want a little bit more detail on. You don't necessarily need to want to talk to one of the developers, you just want a good detail from a trainer. So you can come there and say, I'm interested in the topic X, I'd like to talk about this, and we'll set up a schedule and line up somebody. There's lots of my compatriots here this week, they'll be able to talk about lots of different things. So you can set up a one-on-one personal training session. Also, often when you're starting learning something, the question is, where do I start? What should I do next? How do I do it? So we have people that can help you set up learning plans. Okay, we just started a project, we're using this particular thing we've never used before. What's the best approach? And we could recommend a certain learning plans. There will be a combination of classroom courses that we have. We teach both in person and virtually. There's also lots of online content, some self-paced things, lots of different things there. So if you're interested in I've never done anything with interoperability with Iris, but I need to, what's the best place to start? So folks are there to help navigate you through and suggest different learning plans. So again, also part of within the Tech Exchange. And also find out the things we're doing in learning services. For example, there's a newsletter you can subscribe to that once a month we send out. Here's all the new content that we published. Here's a new thing about vector search that you'll see people talking about this week. Here's a new thing about AI that we put. So every time we put something new, there's a monthly newsletter that just says, here's the new content. So that's the learning services part. So the partner, actually anyone here who's going to be in the partner pavilion? I had a few folks from in the previous iteration of this that had folks. So the partner pavilion is where you can see things that our partners are doing, products that are available or services. So if you're looking for a consultant to help, several people in the Partner Pavilion represent consulting organizations, system integrators. We also have customers that are doing a variety of different tools that you can utilize within Iris. They're there too. So please come by the Partner Pavilion. It's in the same general area as the Tech Exchange. Look at what all our partners are doing, something maybe appeal to you. On Monday night on the schedule here, you'll see a demo and drinks session where a lot of our partners will be doing demos in the big area, and you can get something to eat and walk around and see all the demos. You also get to vote on the demos that are your favorite demos as well. So that's on tomorrow night. But in general, if there's no particular session that strikes your fancy, come to the Tech Exchange. There's lots of things happening there. Or if there's some particular question you have, and even though there's a session you want to go to, maybe come to the Tech Exchange to find out while we have everybody here. You can always watch the recording of the session later if you're interested. So the Tech Exchange is a great resource for things to do this week. Okay, that's it. Again, the goal here was a quick summary of the high level of the products. For details, lots of things, resources available to you this week. I'll be happy to answer any general questions people have right now. I'll hang around for a bit as well if people have any one-on-one questions they're going to ask. So in general, if there's a particular topic you have a question on, the best thing to do is go to the Tech Exchange and mention what it is, and someone will say, for that you need, and we'll find somebody and set up a one-on-one meeting to talk about those things. Okay, if there are no other questions, again, I'm going to hang around for a bit. If people have an individual question, I'll be happy to answer. Looking forward to seeing you this week, and if you bump into me any other questions throughout the week, I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you for your time.